Hi, Amaya. It's so wonderful to drop in with you. How are you today?
Well, as you know, we've had an adventure overcoming some high-tech technical difficulties.
High tech problems, low tech solutions,
That's
right?
right.
Just the on off, and here we go.
And here we go. Thank God. Thank the goddess.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's beautiful to see you and connect with you. Thanks so much for coming on to the Everyday Mystic.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're going to talk today about your background with all things Vedic, but really want to home in. Uh, People always get that wrong, but I had to look that up a long time ago. It's like hone is like me, it's like taking the tool and you carve it down to the point of where it's, the sharpest, best, and home in is the zeroing in on. And so I want to correct myself there. Home
Mm.
in, we're going to home in on Vedic astrology because it's something that we haven't discussed on this podcast, something I'm fascinated with, as well as all things within the Vedic traditions, and you are steeped in so many different areas of these traditions. So let's talk a little bit about you and how you got started in this world and on this path.
Yeah, totally. Well, when I was young, a little girl, I was exposed to a lot of spiritual writings, like Idris Shah, who is a famous Sufi writer. One of my favorite books was World Tales, and it was just these fantastic stories from all around the world. And from a very young age, I was really aware of how magnificent it is that we even exist, right? Like having this book that talked about how we're all born from stardust. And it really hit me at like this very young age that my whole body was birthed from the explosion of stars, and just how incredible it is that we exist. And as I, grew up and grew older, and then trauma and life kicked in, and I started to struggle a lot with anxiety and depression. I had a lot of really terrible physical ailments, like this horrible chronic back pain that would leave me unable to walk for like a week out of every month, that no Western doctor could solve, that went on for 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And um, trying all these different ways to manage my health, to manage my emotional health. Like I really felt so hopeless and helpless. And what began to shift is I was in India traveling with my ex-husband, and we were on this pilgrimage to investigate the roots of our spiritual lineage, because at that point I had taken initiation into my first lineage at 27. And so we went to India and ended up falling really ill on this like 2-day train ride from like the north to the south. We're like in this disgusting gray worn leather compartment, like being rattled around for 2 days. And at the end of it, we ended up in this Ayurvedic hospital, not because we were trying to get treatment, but because it was this stop off point that we had already planned to be taken to this hut, this jungle, to meditate in South India. And it was our friend Robert Svoboda who was like, I've got this hut, you can go meditate there. And we're like, sure. And along the way, we ended up in this Ayurvedic hospital, and it was there that they looked at us, we were just wreck, totally disheveled, like had fever. We're all gaunt, just like gross. And they're like, oh, you should stay. So they invited us to stay and do panchakarma treatment. And when I told them about my back pain, they didn't ask me about my exercise. They didn't ask me anything about my spine so much. They looked at my tongue and asked me about what I ate. And I was like, these people are tripping, right? Like, why are they asking me those questions? But it turns out that my 15 years of debilitatingly painful back pain had been caused by my diet and
Wow.
lifestyle, and mostly by the food. So that 3 months of taking herbs, 2 weeks of treatment, 3 months of taking herbs, my back pain was cured. Like
Mm.
like the thing that MRIs, X-rays, PT, acupuncture. I literally did everything because I'm a fighter. Like I will figure it out, no matter how long it takes, right? And that sent me to Ayurveda school, and that is where I started to get steeped into these Vedic traditions. And this is also where I truly recognize that the biggest block to my own spiritual journey and up until that point had been my physical well-being. So that's kind of just a chunk of
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. I know when the vessel is sick, not properly tended, has holes, right? All of these things. It's like it's really hard to focus on much else in any type of other, and I feel like my journey has been a holistic journey in that sense too, of where um, you can't jump. I mean, it would be spiritual bypassing, right? To bypass this very real thing going on in your body, to just be like, oh no, I want to ascend and I want to, reach this spiritual height, but without addressing the temple and from which you are worshiping, right? And obviously you were being told over and over again every month, like, no, like address this first. No,
Yeah.
you can't go there unless you come here.
Yeah. And what was so frustrating is that I was trying. It was like all my spare time, this healing journey was like my whole bookshelf was books on back pain. Paul Pitchford's like Healing with Whole Foods. This is kind of like the Bible for so many people starting out. But that the correct knowledge was missing from the West within all of these books. Like nobody was making that digestion to back pain connection
Mm-hmm.
like Ayurveda was.
Yeah. How
And
beautiful.
it's beautiful. And it's also like, there are so many people out there suffering right now who are suffering because of their own daily habits and actions. Like never underestimate the power of what you eat to seriously wreak havoc on your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What were
So
some of the things, like what was the radical shifting of your diet that you made that in those 3 months?
and actually like it was radical yet so simple. It
Like
was,
all good things.
yeah, well, it was like eating foods. Okay, first of all, like smoothies had to go. This like protein fruit smoothie stuff, terrible. And I'm bringing that up because so many people think it's healthy. Granola and yogurt with fruit, absolutely horrible food combining. Um, really, it was eliminating difficult food combos like the fruit plus protein, and eating large quantities of nuts at one time, and uh, not eating too late, so not snacking. And
Mm-hmm.
that alone eliminated so much of the ama, the undigested food toxins that had built up in my body and that were responsible for the inflammation and pain. So
Mm-hmm.
so the takeaway is understand good food combining rules.
Yeah. And for you, I mean, based on, was this your path based on your doshas and the imbalances going on specifically in you? Like, would me coming in have a different protocol, let's say, a different dietary path?
Yeah, I mean, it is based on your digestive health and your unique constitution type. Like the food combining stuff, everybody can follow that unless you have really strong digestion. You're just one of those people. And the way you tell, the simple at-home marker test: look at your tongue. If there's a white coating on it, that same white coating is throughout your entire gastrointestinal tract, right? So if your tongue is clean, then your guts are clean. If it's
Mhm.
not, that means there's some work to be done.
Yeah. I,
Mhm.
I don't know if everyone, when I had this realization, it was like a, but I'm not sure if everyone else would have this same reaction that like the gastrointestinal tract is completely open, that we are right. Like it's a open tube. Yes, it winds and does all this crazy shit, but it is an opening. It's actually a channel in
Yep.
our body from
Yep.
mouth to
Anus.
anus, right? Rather
Mhm.
than like thinking, oh, everything in here is like all closed up. It's like, oh no, that's like a open channel, which therefore is like super open to, I mean, yes, we get things through all of our everywhere from the
Mhm.
outside, but that's like so susceptible
It is.
to the external forces because of just it's a channel. It's not a closed system, which is when I really that came to, and I had studied anatomy, physiology, like even when in studying that, it just didn't click until I don't remember when it was posed to me in that way. And I was like, oh yeah, like
Yes. And what's so fascinating along those same lines is that from the Ayurvedic viewpoint, the pathway of the mind is the entire body. The mind is not here, it's not rooted here. When we talk about the pathway of the mind, it's rooted in the heart. And it extends through all the channels, which is so interesting. I'm also a trauma informed master coach. And something we say a lot is that the body remembers what the mind forgets.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can really see that wisdom reflected. And it's also why in spiritual tradition, you're right, we do take care of the temple, because this is like, if you cannot sit comfortably in meditation, this is what yoga is for, to open up the body so that you can be in asana, you can be in seat for hours. Because it really, I mean, in my experience, it takes 90 minutes to fully connect, like to really let the ego and the mind and all the things go away. 90 minutes. You need to be able to sit there. So,
Yeah, it's incredible that deep, deep wisdom that is all connected. And again, not everybody understands or knows, or just doesn't know because they haven't studied it or looked into it. That yoga, Ayurveda, all of those traditions, prana, and all the breath, everything it's a connected system. It's all a connected. It's a way of living, really, a way of both philosophically understanding what is going on in the world or with us as humans and spirits in these bodies, and also a way to live in that and maximize or optimize that, right? And it's such a brilliant system, so ancient, so wise. And as we've progressed as humans and created new spiritual pathways, oftentimes we lose that connection. Most of them don't have anything about how we take care of the body. It's like we started to lose that with Judaism, like post Judaism, it seems like, because that, still had in it, the things that Jewish people can't eat are typically tied to, maybe, what I understand of it at least is like what could have made them sick, these foods that were dirtier and make them so it's they're banned. It's not like banned, because well, I'm sure there's deep, deep traditions around why the banning, but to me, that health tie of how it affects the body
yeah.
is a strong indicator of a tradition that is still considering the body rather than ascending
Mhm.
from the body. If we're going to live out a life here that is our best life, we can't do it from a body that is not in its best state.
Yeah.
So you went from then studying Ayurveda to studying Vedic traditions and things. And then when did you kind of move into this world of studying Vedic astrology and learning more about that?
Mm-hmm. So my first course was in 2014 as part of my education at the Ayurvedic Institute, but it wasn't really until last year that I like really dove in seriously. So I finished my first course, my first year with Freedom Cole, who runs the school Science of Light. He's written a book called Science of Light. He's absolutely an incredible astrologer. And I am now enrolled in a 5-year Jyotish Pundit, which is kind of like a, I guess, priest kind of. I don't know what the best translation is. So I've been using it and in my own life for a decade. And I was also taking every single one of my clients to an astrologer for years. And so I would sit in on the reading and learn, right?
Mhm.
And just, it was so amazing to me because all these things that I was intuiting, my astrologer would confirm. And so it was this beautiful synchronicity of these things showing up in the chart. And then I was like, well, I just need to learn this. like
Yeah.
like in a committed way. And to be clear, like this is an ocean, right?
Mm.
This is an ocean of knowledge. And I will be in this ocean for decades, right?
Mm. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that you brought that up, is that you were already intuiting this information, and then you've got this system that acts as almost like a feedback loop or a sounding board for what you are picking up intuitively and going, oh, okay, we can verify it through this system, through the astrology too, and it makes it more, maybe more real or more, um, not more real, but more, I guess, backed up by something larger than yourself, right?
Absolutely, yes. And I'm really a fan of confluence, right?
Mm.
If you have one thing pointing you in a certain direction, that's cool. But when you have 3, 4, 10, it's like, okay, let's jump in the stream. And and astrology gives us that lens, right? It gives us that confluence. It gave me a deep understanding of my own karma. And like the more difficult ones, like I understand, I have what's called Shani MKS, Marana Karakastana, in my first house. For any astrologer out there, it's an indicator of struggling with health conditions, right?
Mm.
And I've had enough clients to and done research, right? Because part of the tradition I'm in and the teacher I'm with, he really encourages research. He's like, don't just assume that this is accurate. Like, yeah, we'll teach you the principles, but like go find 10 charts, compare them, do these comparative analyses. Um, but you'll see, people with this planet there, like we've all had some kind of health journey, right? Saturn in the first house, not in his own sign or exalted, leads to these difficulties.
Mm.
And in some ways, it's also very validating because it can like in my situation, I was trying so hard, right, for 15 years, like really trying to figure out this problem and just so frustrated. And then you see it indicated and you're like, oh, I'm not crazy.
Mhm. Oh, this is real. Okay, now I can, yeah. What do you use it mostly for? Is it to look at current states, future states, past states, maybe?
Mhm.
How do you most apply it?
Yeah, well, when I'm looking at, when I'm using Vedic astrology for my clients, I use it to understand what is the soul purpose, what is the soul's journey, what is the evolutionary overarching lesson, right? What is this person desiring, and what is blocking them, right? Because actually, Jyotish or Vedic astrology is all about helping relieve human suffering. Like, you don't go to, like, in the West, people go to astrologers because it's so juicy to hear about yourself. Like, we all want to have our experience reflected. And that alone is such an incredibly healing experience, to just have someone fully see you, all the different facets, right? It's all you're this and, not you're this but. It's all you're this and. And so getting that clarity on this beautiful soul that's sitting in front of me, and what karmas are covering this particular incarnation, how can we support them to either overcome these obstacles or learn how to find peace and find the joy within the experience, even if it's not the one they think they should be having.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. And so then helping people explore that path, the path of their soul's purpose, that being able to see into something larger, greater, different maybe than how they're currently living.
Yes. And, the tradition that I am a part of, we are very remedy focused. So it's like, and you don't hear about this in the West. Like, no Western astrologer talks about what you can do about your situation. They're like, oh, you're like this because yes, and.
Yeah,
Right.
like, oh, you're such a Gemini, or you're such a whatever, or okay, it's just, that's it.
Yeah. And like, one example, like in Western, I'm a Cancer, but I'm a Virgo. In Vedic, I'm a Virgo. And if you know anything about me, like, I'm such a Virgo. Like, I notice every little tiny thing. And it's great for a diagnostic consulting career, which that's what I do. But yes, it really is about giving people that opportunity and experience to know themselves deeper, and the remedies help unlock that. It's like digesting karmas. So we might give people, you might do volunteer work, right? We will tell some people, okay, you should work with vets based on your chart. Like, I just did a session with someone and it was so clear, like, you should coach veterans and this will help some of these other more difficult areas of life.
How specific. And is that something that you intuit from the chart as a means to accomplish that, or is it that specific in the reading?
Yeah, it's actually laid out per the tradition. And what my teacher has done, he's taken traditional Vedic remedies and translated them into a modern context, right? So that's why this tradition is so cool, because it gets that specific. And there are certain combinations, like for my chart, I give donation to an organization in India that supports girls at risk of being sex trafficked, right? And I also give donation to my guru, my spiritual teacher, every month. So these are combined with mantra chanting, combined with spiritual practice. Miracles can happen for people.
That sounds amazing. Oh, I'm going to book a session with you. That sounds so much juicier than the other, some of the other traditions, or just even combined with some of the other traditions, right? In the understanding of self and understanding of our journey here, and what our path and how that can be enhanced, right? We can do so much to destroy this lifetime, and conversely, people I think have a harder time understanding how we can enhance it. It's just like, well, how easy to look at all the ways that we can make this a shitty life and destroy everything, but can't we also do the opposite and it's like sometimes less assured by some that we can create and manifest and actually have the power
Mm.
to do that. And these tools that you're talking about are such great ways to help us do all that.
Yes. And one thing that's really interesting, so I'm very much into Tantra, but the traditional version. And
Oh, yeah. Describe the traditional versus maybe what people expect of that.
yeah, so when I'm talking about Tantra, I'm talking about uh, a series of rituals to become a deity, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's, you know, so the various deities represent universal energetic archetypes, right? So we can understand them through mythology because we're creatures of story, but at the end of the day, like is Ganesha actually an elephant-headed being? I mean, you can experience seeing him like that. Absolutely. And what he really is the remover of obstacles, right? So or divine mother, what is she, which form, what is she representing? She's representing protecting her children at all costs,
Mhm.
right? That ferocious mother who does anything to keep her littles safe. And when we bring those energies into our bodies, right, we prepare this to become a vessel for a certain energy, for a divine archetype, so that we can embody that, right? So when
Mhm.
I talk about Tantra, I'm referring to a practice that involves different mantras and different ways of preparing the vessel for that.
Mhm.
And, some of the deities do ask for sexual fluids. Like there are certain practices. I haven't done those personally, but there are deities. It's like, this is how you worship them. And that's part of it. Um, and I don't think that there's anything like wrong. I like a lot of aspects of the Neo Tantra movement because it's helping people to overcome shame, right? Like the biggest control by certain organizations such as church have been how can we make people ashamed of their very biology,
Mhm.
right? Like what a powerful tool to make you ashamed of just your very existence.
Mhm.
And that's a beautiful process as well, but it is different from what I think of. So
Yeah, and it just like as you were saying, the ocean, the ocean, right? It's an ocean of uh, information and inspiring and practices and ways of connecting, and it's not just this one narrow lens that we see through some, the Kama Sutra. And then we see yoga through the lens of how it was brought over here, to the States,
mhm.
and what was brought, and then who brought that, and then how that, then therefore became our version of yoga, which is now hot yoga. And it's, it's a very specific thing for people here because of the way, right, that it's brought over. But then that's the drop in the ocean of knowledge that exists around these ancient. I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around it sometimes, around the thousands and thousands of years, right? That these traditions have been practiced and developed even, and even, I mean, that's only what we know, right? 6,000 years. I mean, it's like, how far back, does this really go?
Exactly.
So for you in application now, because you mentioned that you're also a master coach, are all of these things combined for you when you work with a client into kind of one offering, or do people kind of come see you for specific things?
Both of those things happen. I do. My favorite is getting to work with people in like 6 month to year-long containers where I can take them through this entire process where we're using the Ayurveda. I start every coaching container with an astrology reading, looking at the person's chart, understanding like what planets are active right now, what desires are active right now, and to understand like planets translates in Sanskrit, it's called graha, and it means that which seizes you. It's very different than planet. And so putting that together to create this holistic and comprehensive pathway for people to embody their personal expression, to embody their dharma, right? And to embody the spiritual nature that I believe is inherent to humans.
I would love all the listeners to work with you, but if they can't or they're not ready, then can you offer anything as a ways and means of working with this information? Maybe some of the things that you self-studied with, or some of the things that maybe you did in the early days to open yourself up to this information?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had teachers. That's the big thing. I have had teachers, amazing teachers for everything I've studied from Ayurvedic medicine. I studied with Dr. Basant Lad. He's the most famous Ayurvedic doctor in the U.S. Absolutely stunning human being. I studied meditation with 3 different lineages now. Find someone to sit with, like find someone to study under, because the thing is these are arts that have so much nuance, that have so much subtlety. Like you could have this verse and it's like 2 sentences, but a teacher could like unpack it with a 2-month teaching. So the first guru is mom. Mom teaches you how to live. We all need teachers. So that's my big message. Like, or if you don't have teachers in your area, surround yourself with people who are interested in similar things. This is the other best thing to do. It's building that community. It's being around people who have the vibration that you want, right? Find those people, hang out with them as much as humanly possible.
For you personally, did you move around? What did you do to seek your teachers and your community?
Oh my God, so many things. And I'm laughing because I have like, I would go to India regularly to train classical dance. I have studied, I've followed my spiritual teacher to India numerous times. I have moved sight unseen, like from Seattle to Albuquerque to study Ayurveda. And then last minute, somebody mentions this astrology teacher and I'm like, yes, I'll just do that. Like I jump right in. I have done so much for that. Like I have moved, traveled, not slept for 3 days, stayed in the craziest, dirty places with no sleep in order to go on pilgrimage. Like I'll go there.
Yeah, so dedicated to the learning and where the inspiration is, right? It's like you know to go.
Because listen, like how does a person go from how did I go from growing up in small town Kansas to being a metal drummer and partying with rock stars to then sitting at the feet of saints who can levitate in the Himalayan foothills, right? It was this path, the path that I just outlined for you, right? It was this Ayurvedic medicine into the spiritual practices and the astrology and being surrounded by people who are much further than I am. And I'm that person for people as well. I'm much further than many people. So it's just such a beautiful place to be. And it's exciting. And it's exciting. And, the big takeaway I want to leave everybody with is to just remember to have awe for your incredible organism, like for your ability to have consciousness, for this like fantastical, mystical world. Like if you can find the wonder in a plant or a pen, like then you can find wonder in all creation.
Yeah.
And that is when you have won.
Mm, so beautiful. I can see it, and it exudes from you. And anybody watching this or listening to this will feel assured by the message because you're such a shining example of it. Thank you so much, Maya, for all of your wisdom and your knowledge and your tips. Can't wait to have you on again or get my chart done. So maybe we can do that. I'll get my chart done, and then you can come on again and tell the world about what you find.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I'm totally open to that.
Beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day, sister.
Thank you. Om Namah Shivaya.
Uh,